talk about. Mr. Ryan.
So I had a question that came up for me at the New Year's retreat, and I didn't get a chance to ask, but I thought I'd try it out tonight. I'm talking about calm abiding. Sometimes we talk about establishing stillness or establishing clarity, but also thoughts being the mind in motion. Mm-hmm. So it seems that it's not that we're trying to eliminate thoughts. Right. But so I guess my kind of question is what is the stillness and what is the movement of mind? Because my understanding is that thoughts aren't necessarily an obstacle to meditation. So it's not that we're trying to cause thoughts to cease, but at the same time we're trying to establish a kind of stillness. And what is that stillness? Is that awareness? What would we call that?
Well, we're not, I don't know if I can answer your question, because it's actually, as I understand it, the answer's going to come in your own experience. But movement of mind is not a problem at all. I was wondering if you were thinking, you're not thinking we're trying to stop the mind from moving. We're simply, all the words fall apart because I want to say try, but we're not trying. We're simply observing and finding our awareness of what's going on. Oh, mind moving. Oh, mind still. So this placement thing that I talked a little bit about tonight, it's the calm abiding. You place your mind on, I could do it on this, anything. Body still, that's one thing. That'll help the placement. And that's the not moving mind. But the problem is, or the habit is, it's not even a problem, to move the body, to move the mind. That's why Lama Michael today was saying 1 to 4 seconds, because beyond that, we're moving. And we may not be noticing we're moving, but what he was trying to emphasize for us, that if you can get even a second of experience, it was still. It was still. Mind was still. Then you can build on that. But if we never get that 1 second of stillness and confidence that it was still, and he used a funny phrase today. He said, you'll have to end up admitting it was still. And I kind of laughed because I think 2 things happen in my experience. Sometimes I think my mind is still when it isn't. What's actually happening is it's doing, I'll just make motion. Instead of doing big movements, it's doing this. And I'm sort of coasting on that and thinking that's stillness. But stillness is this placement. It has a certain amount of intention with it, but not strain. And today, as he was having us do that over and over and over, I got just a sense of, oh, maybe it's just that simple. There, I placed it. It was still. But we keep going beyond, looking for something. It reminds me of the, I don't know how many people have heard this about the problems of Mahamudra. What's the problem with Mahamudra? Mahamudra being the Maha great, mudra seal, that is appearance and emptiness together, experiencing them as together, not just talking about them, but experiencing Ryan and Ryan empty. I'm just saying these things, that's not how I experience you. I think you're very real. But the problem, the so-called problems with Mahamudra are too simple. The reason we can't do that, experience that, is it's so simple, and our minds are not simple. We're complex, and we're, as Michael says over and over, we're very conceptual. So we get in our own way. You know, I'll place my mind for, let's say, a second. I'll give it a try. You give it a try too. Just place your mind on one thing, a solid thing, okay? Did you experience its stillness? Good, you did. Then you can build on that. So you know the stillness. Now we can talk about it, but your knowing of that is much better for you.
Right, but then it seems like sometimes there'll be that stillness, and then a thought will come, but it won't necessarily interrupt that stillness. But then other times there'll be a thought that comes, and then you go with a thought, and that seems like that's the distraction, and that's not that stillness.
Right. I think thoughts can happen within that stillness. I think that because they just are. What's the metaphor they use? The sky, the cloud going by. Do you follow the cloud, or do you keep your mind on the sky? If you keep your mind in the sky, the cloud's no big thing. You know, it's just, you don't start in, oh, looks like a dragon, and oh, I remember the story of the dragon, and, you know, then it's a distraction. But otherwise, it's just going. Yeah, is that helpful? Okay, so the main thing is for all of us to experience these states of stillness, motion, and not talk about them to ourselves. Just have the experience. Yeah.
Might be more of the problem. It's just accepting that you saw the stillness, it was right there.
Yeah.
Like not saying, well, did I? Or didn't I? And is that still?
Yeah, I do that too. I do that. I don't think I did. I even argue with him. He'll tell me, you have experienced it. And I say, but I don't know. And he said, yes, you do know. And it's funny because, you know, I'm just like adding in some crazy confusion. So I was going to say something else about Mahamudra. It's too simple. We don't believe in it because it's like, you just like see that appearance and emptiness come together. You just experience that. That's it. I mean, no, it's got to have a lot of books, and it's got to have a lot of problems with it. And not saying that's simple, because as he said, you still might need to spend 40, 50 years doing it, but it's too simple for our complex habits, and it's too close. They say it's so close, we kind of can't see it.
Kind of like hidden in plain sight.
Yes, hidden in plain sight is one of the ways they talk about it. Yeah, because then we make it more murky, and it's like, no, it must be something really fancy, far away, and hard to do. And then we just miss it. We miss our own experience all the time. Yeah, Matthew.
So it sounds like according to sort of what you're how you're characterizing thoughts and concepts aren't the same thing.
Oh, they are.
Is that? Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
I was curious about that.
Yeah, all
kind of that
thoughts are
thought.
conceptual.
So there's no such thing as a non-conceptual thought then?
I don't think so. I don't see how there could be.
I was curious because it seems like thoughts just kind of, we talk about thoughts as, I don't know, like spontaneous events that they don't really have any like conscious intention sort of moving them along. And I've always been curious if it's possible to kind of like for thoughts to just pass by without conceptualization, or if like or if non-conceptual and thoughtless are kind of the same thing.
Well, sensations can. So, touch something. The actual pure bare sensation, we almost always miss.
Oh.
Because, and I'm going to miss it again, because a thought jumps in right away, hard, smooth. I'm already onto, or not mine, belongs to KCC, too short, you know, I wish it was here, you know, they just cut in so fast. But sensations are pure sensation. What the teachings say is we miss them all the time. Like, look quickly at something and look away. It's almost impossible to not start a bunch of thoughts about it. Like one time this Lama, who used to be an interpreter for the Dalai Lama, he was showing us how they teach the little monks, and he said, see this? And we look, and he said, is it the color or is it the shape? That's kind of a koan. All of a sudden, you're thrown into a little koan. You could say both, but if you take the, he's just playing with you, you know, about perception. We think we're so clear about our perceptions, but we're really, he was doing a whole series of things to show us we're really unclear about our perceptions. You can't have this shape without a color, right? Without color lights, I mean, what are those waves are that bounce off? But the colors would be bouncing everywhere without this shape, right? It's just all kind of games about perception. Like how much of this you think you're in this hall, right? Well, just look straight, only straight ahead, and then your peripheral vision. How much of this hall do you see? The rest, you're just assuming. You're just assuming the rest. You can't see it. I can't see or feel anything from about here, but I call it the hall, you know, based on my sight, limited. So perceptions are quite a different thing than our thoughts, but the thoughts come right in so fast that we almost don't ever have just a pure perception and leave it alone.
And so the experience of sort of thoughts being unintentional is just because they're it's just like it's like which side I get out of the bed on. It's I don't have to do that, but it's just what I do. In the sense that, like,
yeah, I think you could say that. It's what our mind does. So try to stop all your thoughts for a period of time. You really can't. Many people have tried, you know, and there's always something still going. So in this lineage, you don't try to stop thoughts, you just see them. And eventually we see through them. No, we see their nature is impermanent. You can't hold them. One exercise we did in our one-year retreat is, okay, get calm, do some calm abiding, conjure a thought. Giraffe. Can you see where it comes from, where it abides, and where it goes? Good luck. And the other thing that is taught is you're not ever seeing any particular giraffe unless one's in front of you. It's a generic thought of giraffe. And we operate on these generic thoughts constantly. So like, if we leave and Ryan and I talk about Matthew. It's not the particular Matthew, because he's changing every minute, so are we. But we have a generic way to talk about Matthew, just a generic Matthew. It's very strange how our mind works. We hardly perceive reality at all. This is why the lamas keep saying that we're in a state of illusion, but we don't know it, because we believe these things. We even go to war for them. It's kind of daunting. But, we're doing okay, because we're looking at it, and we're working towards kindness, and, Does that clarify, thoughts?
I think so,
Thoughts
yeah.
just come. You can't stop them, and it becomes so clear that you're not in control of them.
Mhm.
My God, if we were, would we think the way we do?
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
I would think different than I do.
I guess I was looking at concepts and sort of concepts and intellect and thinking as kind of like a something active that it has some sort of conscious intent behind it.
Oh,
that
it's
we're
a super thought.
or
conscious
something that actively involves me actually
Being more in control of it.
yeah, directing it.
That's a kind of a common, that's a non-Buddhist way to think of concept. A scientific way. We came up with this concept. That's a different way. But when we're talking concept, that was volitional, and you all put your blueprints down,
Right.
and now you have this concept. But it's still a whole bunch of thoughts just stuck together.
Yeah.
But it was more, you were aiming to have that concept. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about all thoughts. All thoughts are conceptual.
Okay.
And reality that we're aiming for is non-conceptual. Concepts will not get us there. They can be a little stepping stone, but then you have to throw that away and have the experience. Even the Gelugpas, they're even those people who I've been with most of my Buddhist life. Even them, the scholars say, it has to be experienced. You can study and study and study. The way the Gelugpas, that's the Dalai Lama's lineage and one of my root teachers' lineage, is you will study and study and study and contemplate and contemplate and contemplate. And it's kind of the way I think it. This is just my own personal take on it. You reach what they call an inference through all that mental effort. And the inference of what reality is closer to an experience, but it's not it yet. And then you still have to move into full experience. But they just feel like concept can get you there. Thought and thought and thought and thought. Study, 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 study. Contemplate. Contemplate over and over. Take your body apart. Lay the skin out. Lay the bones out. Lay the muscles out. Lay the blood out. That's you. Is that you? You just keep doing this stuff. It does shake it out. But you still have to experience the sense of no self. Words won't. Words can just help a little. And as Bokar Rinpoche has said, that Bill or Lama Michael said, that he said, I wasn't there, words and concepts can get you close, and then at some point they'll start pulling you away. And this we have to see for ourselves. The concepts were very helpful right to here. Now I'm just spinning around in concepts, and I'm going nowhere. And at that point, just sit down and place your mind. Just sit down and do some calm abiding. was going to get closer to the experience.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did people try the 4-second thing? What was it like for you? Weird, good? Yeah, you want to give the microphone back there? 4 to 10 seconds, Michael said, not more than 10. Strict, not more than 10.
4 to 10 second rule.
Yeah.
What I was noticing last weekend when he introduced it, and then practicing at home, trying it at home this week, and again tonight, one of the places I got was kind of what you were just referencing, and that I wasn't using my breath or an object. I was trying it with an experience, an emotion.
The other thing he was
Yeah.
teaching. Yeah.
Yeah. Practicing riding a unicycle instead of a bicycle.
Yeah. Gets
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah. But I go, oh, okay, we have a few days here.
Yeah.
I'll try
Right.
under his guidance. But what I was noticing was it helps even more when I see it and I don't try and
Yeah.
each
You
time.
can't
It's never
come
the same
back
thing.
anything.
It can feel like it's that group of feeling that's usually fear or
Yeah. Here I am
whatever.
again with
Yeah,
fear.
but it's like it helped to even drop that word. You know, that, oh, it's that fear group that
Yeah.
morphs.
Yeah.
And just try and drop all words when I just was trying to look at the experience or feel the experience.
And when you look, do you, is it a set of thoughts and sensations or a swirl or?
Well, I was trying to, in those brief times, a couple things I was trying. One is the deliberate stop of it. Instead of just thinking I let it go, I found it helped to maybe close my eyes as that session, that little mini session is
For your
done.
4 seconds?
Yeah.
Oh, at the end of it?
Yeah, at the end of, say, the 4-second or the 10-second, or I don't have a good sense of time. Whatever the short time was, I'd actually close my eyes, and because otherwise it could drift in and out like I had drawn a line and then smudged it.
Oh, yeah, hard to let go, because then the thing is too powerful. That's
Yeah.
one of the difficulties of using an experience instead of a solid object.
Yeah.
The experience of happiness or attraction or aversion is stronger.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to stop the story. It kind of wants to keep going.
Well,
Yeah.
it
Even
wasn't.
we say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm setting that down. Remember, he said, set it down nicely like a crystal vase, just set it down gently and then rest. I find too, when I've been moving more into experience, I try to set it down and it sticks to my hands or something. It's like, I'm done with you, 10 seconds are up, but it's going, yeah, but what about da-da?
So I was trying to not think of any story.
Yeah.
I was trying to even stop the thinking of the label of that feeling, and then just closing my eyes as a period on that help let go.
It helped.
Yeah, it helped
nice.
made a and then I could just close my eyes and then open, and it made a definite end instead of a
Yeah, instead of that straggly thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Where if it was straggly, then I would get half into it, half out of it, and it would get all,
Yeah.
carried away. But that stopping the naming and stopping the session with a deliberate
Yeah.
motion helped.
Yeah. Over here, Melissa.
I wanted to add to that because I worked with the emotion too, and I worked with a really intense negative emotion, and I thought I was going to die, but I didn't die. But
We're glad.
but my body seemed to hold on to it, and I'm just wondering, when is that poison instead of medicine? Like, it almost seems like I traumatized myself on a cellular level in a way.
Well, you know, we're always running the experiment. So you ran an experiment, and maybe you saw, that's too much for me, that particular scene or that particular emotion. Maybe 4 seconds of that's too much. And that's fine. You ran an experiment. Then find a way to go halfway toward it, or pick out a chunk, you know. But I don't think in running those experiments we actually hurt ourselves. I don't think so. I think what happens, because you're here, you're safe, nothing happened, you can look around. I think what happens is we're touching on something that did traumatize us once, and we're getting caught. But nothing's actually happening here. Does that make sense, Melissa? So sometimes we touch something that's just too hot for us. You know, I've experienced that. Just drop it. Just use the eye close or the whatever, and just drop it and focus on a red pillow or on something. You can even flip and focus on something. This is the power of the mind. You can turn it to the face of a friend or anything. This is the power of the mind. We are not stuck. It's called unobstructed for a reason, meaning no obstructions. We really don't really rely on that to the degree we could. Unobstructed means full creativity. Switch back, switch forward, switch sideways. Play, you know. Does that make sense? We're not really stuck. When we think we're stuck, we're really not stuck. In reality, in any kind of reality, we're not stuck. We're having a feeling and a set of thoughts about stuckness. And that's all they are. You can't find your stuckness. Can you? Try to find it. Where is it? I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean, is it in your body somewhere? Stuckness? There's sensations, and you can look at them. That's what I mean when I say pull out a chunk. So like one of mine is anxiety. So the chunk I've learned to pull out of anxiety, it's something that starts physically right here. It's like, I can't describe it, it's a sensation. And if I pull that sensation, if I focus right away on that sensation, it almost never goes further. It doesn't go to full-blown anxiety anymore, because I've learned to find that peace. What's the beginning of this terrible story of I'm traumatized, you know? Is that helpful? You still look like you're puzzling over something.
When working with that difficult emotion, I wasn't necessarily adding to the storyline, but it was really easy for the sensation to build.
Was it physical?
It was physical.
Okay.
So I think it's just interesting that the body and mind almost sometimes seem like separate entities, if that makes sense.
They're very connected. But they're very interesting
Yeah.
because the body and mind are very connected, but they are separate continuums, as in the body will end, the consciousness will not end. So they affect one another constantly. You know, we can, quote, make ourselves sick, you know, in a certain way. We can help make ourselves well, not magically, but, you know, do things that help us get well. But you were saying they seemed more separate. In what way? Like your body was just doing things, or?
Or maybe my mind, I haven't been able to, you know, work with it enough to stop my body, like, from just getting that uncomfortable sensation, like, from it expanding.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like something really big that you might want to work on with someone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one-on-one with a teacher or with a therapist or something. Because sometimes things are really big for us. There's no need to bite those off by ourselves and freak ourselves out.
We tried.
But it's fine to run the experiment. So
Yeah.
we run the experiment and we learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, wow, that was a whopper. I guess I won't do it quite that way again. You know, is there another way into this? And maybe just put that over there and shine loving Buddha light on it. That's what I do sometimes when things feel very, very big. If I'm especially in conflicts and disputes with people close with me, friends or family, you know, you've had a not good interaction and you weren't able to kind of get to a very good place, but time was up, everybody left or whatever, then I will just try to bring them into the next session with me mentally, and sit them and just do prayers and have Buddha just shine lots of light on me and them, and particularly light in between us, and cleaning all that and picturing it just going down the drain, darkness going down the drain into the earth. And this I don't believe in woo-woo kind of stuff, but I've done this at times really over and over with someone, and then next time I see them, it's like something shifted. I don't know, we're able to talk about the difficult thing, or we realize we don't need to talk about it. It's just kind of diminished. So I think what changes is my mind and heart toward them by the practice I'm doing. That's one thing that changes, because I stop seeing them as bad, scary, wrong. They're just another being sitting right level with me, with the Buddha in front, or Vajrasattva, or Chenrezig, or Tara, you know, and just pour a bunch of light down on it. For one thing, it kind of relieves your mind, you know. It's just like, okay, this is bigger than I can deal with, so let's bring in some real power here, you know. That helped. And doing that for a while before trying to sort of tackle it straight on, you know. Indirect compassion. Still, it's very direct. Okay.
I have kind of what I would call like sort of like a functional concept, or like a functional label that I like to use just to like it's useful for me, like work, because like I experience a lot of I think like what you're describing sounds like stuff that I experience quite a bit, and the label I like to use is like sort of like the pain of looking, or the aversion of looking. And I experience this a lot when I dwell on relationships that I'm not satisfied with, or I dwell on what I like perceived character flaws in myself, like focusing, like any kind of focus that I bring to like unpleasant sensations or unpleasant memories, like anything that seems to be associated with like not being comfortable, not being happy. And so I experience this a lot with people. So what I like to do is kind of what Zopa was describing, which is I recall all of the positive things that I associate with that person, kind of like just trying to change my focus from that sort of that negative association, and reminding myself of the stuff that I'm not focusing on.
Yeah. I just was, I think I just put this on my little bottom of my emails, but it's the Dalai Lama said the minute we think of others, our mind opens, So we get so into how it is for me and my body and this feeling and that feeling, we need to notice that, but we need to then open to all the other's goodness, for example, but also we can immediately do some Tonglen, just all the people who are this scared, all the people who think they're dying in this moment, all the people who've been traumatized, just that much, and saying, I wish them well, I really feel this, I feel this pain, they must feel this pain, I wish we were all free. It can be that fast, and the mind can relax a little because it opens. I've told that story over and over, but it's a potent one. When my stepson got murdered, it was the only practice that actually got me out of some really dark places, and my teacher just kept saying, you think of all parents who lose their son, think of the parents of the son who killed your stepson, you just open and open and open. And it was the only thing that brought any peace to my heart. Just starting to think, how many people lose their sons in their 20s? Tons of them. To gang wars, accidents, violence, diseases. And there was something so helpful about just thinking of me with them, not just them and cutting me out, but it opened up. So it was like, wow, I'm in a huge group of sorrowing people. So I'm not alone. It's not some special punishment of our family, which we can make all these things up and add to the suffering that's already there. And then you just start doing Tonglen, and I've told many times, when my teacher said, would you rather be the parent of the boy who died or the parent of the boy who killed him? And I just was like, oh my God, how do you be a parent of a boy who's committed murder and is now in prison? How do you go visit him and keep your heart open? So it was like, wow, she was just really slapping me awake. It was like, no, you're not some small victim. This is the way the world is, and it's important to learn how to be with that kind of suffering. Because it's just, again, it's going by, He was killed in 2009. It's still somewhat potent for me, but it goes by, But I could hold it and make my whole life about that. Some people do, and create a terrible life. Like my life is all about my stepson got murdered, so I can't move forward. We see this, don't we? And then everyone around us is unhappy. I'm not saying don't grieve. You have to grieve to move forward. But we can make anything solid and then live in it. And this is how calm abiding connects right in. Because in calm abiding, we can see ourselves in 10 seconds get stuck, that's equivalent to the getting stuck 10 years on hating some poor boy who killed Max, you know. What good would that do? It wouldn't do him any good, you know. So this is the way mind training helps us, this open. We have time for one more, Joe. Are you? Is it you?
Yeah. Just a simple question regarding what you just said, Zopa, versus regarding grieving versus becoming fixated. I've heard different teachings from different traditions about grieving and how, like you just said, it is necessary. We do need to grieve. It's healthy to do that. It's necessary. And I know in some cultural traditions, there's actual kind of set times. You know, you grieve, say, a death for so many days, that sort of thing. And then I've heard other folks say things like, oh, you know, you grieve as long as you need to. You know, it's not up to somebody else to tell you how long to grieve or how to grieve or any of that. It's completely personal, and you grieve, you know, in your own way as long as you need to. Do we, in the Dharma, are there teachings about, like, say the loss of your family member or something? How do we? Is there a guideline with knowing how long we're grieving versus, say, if we might observe that maybe we are becoming fixated in that grief?
Yeah, I think the thing that that's such a great question, and there's not an easy, you know, answer like this, you know, there's no stamp, this many days or years, not that you're asking that, but what I think it's tied up with is our attachment to permanence. So and the permanence can be, everything's impermanent, right? We know that. Nothing lasts. Fine, as Lama Michael says, make the list of things that are permanent, okay? Good luck finding even one. And that's a good meditation sometimes. Find what's permanent in the world and write it down and bring it here, because we would want to see it. So everything's impermanent, but grief often is tied to everything's impermanent, but we don't like it that way. We don't want it that way. We didn't want the person to disappear, the job to go, the accident to happen, the disease to occur. So I think when a person then also starts making the grief permanent, you know, that their story becomes, I am a grief, I'm a griever. This is my meaning to my life. Then I think that's just suffering on top of suffering would be the way I would think the best guide is. Are they suffering on top of suffering? There's the initial suffering of the loss, but now there's a whole identity being carved out of this is what I am, and going on and on and on with it. So it'd be maybe helping someone see that. And one of the things is just a question non-Buddhists have said, as I did various things in life, they would say, ask the person from the perspective of the one who died, how would they want them to be living their life? Do you get what I'm saying? So my dad died, and I'm grieving and grieving and grieving and grieving and grieving and kind of making my identity out of that. They would say, is this what your dad would want for you? And the answer is always no, you know. So then, you know, it helps the person think about what's the purpose, you know? What am I getting stuck in here? Does that kind of help? Yeah, because it's just, it can be stuck. But we can, I was going to say we can't ever know, but you can if you're close to someone. If you see them a lot and you're close with them, you can start seeing, wow, they're just going only there. You know, they're getting lost in it. But for the most part, I don't think we can judge each other about that. You know, some people really need to intermittently grieve for a long time. And it's important for them and you to notice it's intermittent. There is no solid block of grief that they are in 100% of every day. It's just not like that. It might feel that way, like people get depressed, like deep depression, and they feel like they're in a solid block of depression every minute of every day. But if you stick with them, you can help them find times where they were not in that. Maybe when they sat down to eat or they felt hungry, that wasn't depression, it was something else. You know, helping people see again, it's not, these things are not solid blocks of anything. It's much looser. It's this unobstructed dance of the Dharmakaya. You know, we always have an opportunity to fake our way out, trick our way out, laugh our way out. You know, find help. You know, it's infinitely creative. That's one thing to remember. None of these situations, even we get in a bad war, or we get a dictator who takes away all of our rights, it's still, we can be infinitely creative within that. Really, truly. And people are, humans always are. Look at any dictatorship in the whole world that got set up. It wasn't like everybody just went along with it. And it eventually dies, and then all that creativity rises. And so this is how reality is more.
Sometimes that oppression can actually create more creativity.
Yes, and we may be seeing some of that. Yes, it can create many openings and many awarenesses. Sometimes the darkness forces a lot of light to come. Okay, thank you. Wonderful discussion and questions, and I wish you well in your practice this week. So let's dedicate.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
Thank you. Tejuche. Okay, see you around.
If I could get everybody to stack up the cushions, they're going to be sanding downstairs. We want to put plastic over all.
Do you want them up on the stage or?
Just on the side of the
Okay,
side of the room.
okay, we can do that.
Cushions would be great.
Leave the chairs. Linda, leave the chairs.
I could stack those too. I don't know. Where are they sanding?
The floor, I guess.
Pick a spot.
What are they
They're
sanding?
sanding downstairs,
Oh,
but
yeah,
there will be
downstairs, but
dust
up.
up here.
Oh, it makes dust up here. I see. And then we have to clean the floor. Okay. All righty.